Good morning again. My name is Tiffany Thompson. I am going to be your facilitator for today's session. I was invited here by my lovely colleague Heather Winsler, and so I will be providing your session for today. We will begin in approximately 3 minutes. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to our session today on accessibility and tools for inclusion. We will be learning about Microsoft Learning Tools for Office 365. My name is Tiffany Thompson, and I am happy to be joining you here today. So, good morning, everyone. So, let's jump right in. As I said, my name is Tiffany Thompson. I am a Microsoft Learning Consultant for the DC, Virginia area. I am also a Microsoft Master Trainer and MIE expert. I have been an educator for over 20 years and I have experience in K through higher education. I work with teachers all across the country and some internationally, training them on how to use Office 365 products in their classroom for teaching and learning. During our session today, please feel free to chat with your colleagues, to send me a question. If you have a question, I kindly ask that you raise your hand first. And if you want to turn on your camera, that is totally fine. Sometimes I find that if your computer or your presentation or the presentation seems to be moving pretty slowly, it may be a good idea to turn your camera off. And if you would be so kind as to mute yourself until you have a question, it would be greatly appreciated. If at any time you want to change your device settings, including turning on closed captioning for yourself, please feel free to do so. So I'm going to talk a little bit just about empowerment and inclusion. As an educator, as an experienced and veteran educator, I've been working with students, or I've worked with students of all skills, levels, abilities, nationalities. I've even taught in Japan for quite some time. And one thing that has been universal is that diversity really means that as educators, we must ensure that our learning environments are inclusive and accessible so that our students continue to be engaged, continue to learn, and that they gain that confidence and independence that they need to be successful in the classroom. I found this data, which I thought was very interesting, and I like to share it whenever I'm talking about learning tools and inclusive classrooms because it really shares or helps us to visualize and think about the diverse classrooms that we are experiencing today across the nation and across the world. Did you know that 73% of teachers report working in classrooms where student reading levels span 4 or more grade levels? So that means if I'm a third grade teacher, I could have a student who is reading on a third grade level, and also I could have a student who's reading on maybe a kindergarten and another one who's reading on fourth grade. I think that that is so true of many school systems. I've worked in public and private sectors, and I find that that has happened to me on more than one occasion, as well as my colleagues. Data also shows that 52% of our students are English language learners. That means more than half of the students in our classrooms are English language learners. And 72% of our students have special, or 72% of our classrooms have special education students. And those special education needs can range from neurodiversity issues to physical impairments or even visual impairments. And because of this range, 50 or up to 50% of our instructional time can be lost to managing students' needs, including assistive technology. And I don't think that that's a bad thing in a sense, but it's just something for us to think about, that as we are working with students who have a variety of needs, including students who use assistive technology, we may lose some instructional time. However, Microsoft has so many tools that we can use to help us gain that lost instructional time, and also work with our students in an efficient or effective manner. So the goal of Microsoft and the idea around these learning tools is to really help us to build a foundation for future success. I'm not sure if you are aware, but Satya Nadella, he actually has children who have learning impairments or learning needs. And a lot of the tools that you'll see today, including the immersive reader, was actually created by educators, or was thought of by educators such as you and I. The immersive reader, which I think is amazing, was actually a hackathon winner. So if you're not familiar with the Microsoft Education Hackathon, it is like an event that educators around the world are invited to present their ideas on how to sort of hack the classroom. And our amazing educator came up with this idea of the immersive reader, and it has been nothing but nonstop full press since. And we have included it, or Microsoft has included it in many applications across the Office 365 suite. When we think about the needs of our students and the assistive technologies that we are going to need to help those students, we also must think about the varying level of, or the diverse needs of our students. We have students who have learning impairments. That could be they're dyslexic or they have dysgraphia, ranging from students who have visual and hearing impairments, things that we can likely diagnose or see pretty quickly. But then we have some students who have those mental health impairments that we don't even know exist. So it's often times it is important for me, and I think it's important for a lot of educators, to really think about the types of students that we have in our classroom and to get to know those students and think about the seen and unseen impairments that these students may have. So I firmly believe that today's learning tools should be free, they should be built in to the system, they should be mainstream, and they should definitely be non-stigmatizing. That means if I have a student who is a struggling reader, he should not have to use a tool that all of the other students know that he's using that could possibly cause bullying or other non-positive behaviors in the classroom. And so Microsoft Learning Tools, you'll find, are all of those. So today we're going to look at the inclusive classroom in 4 different categories. So I'm going to show you the different learning tools for inclusive reading, inclusive writing, inclusive math, and inclusive communication. At any time, as I said, feel free to pop your question in the chat. And if there is a burning question or something that you want me to maybe show you again, please just go ahead and raise your hand. Or there are only a few of you. This is a smaller group, so you can come off mute and ask your question. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about how you can use the navigation tools in Word to help you make sure that your materials are accessible, including using the accessibility checker. And then we'll take a look at using the immersive reader inside of Word and also OneNote. We have a good bit of time together, but I want to make sure that the training or this session is really robust. So I want to spend a lot of time on some of these tools. So if you're I see that there was a question that popped up about the toolbar. So unfortunately in Microsoft Teams, the toolbar that you are seeing is not movable, meaning you cannot move it out of the way. I'm so sorry about that. I do know, however, that going forward, according to the Office 365 roadmap, that is something that will be worked on in the future. So let's dive into inclusive reading. So before we do the inclusive reading part, though, I do want to show you the accessibility checker, which is a part of Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, and many other applications in the Office 365 suite, including Microsoft Sway, if you've not used Microsoft Sway. So in your review tab, I'm in PowerPoint right now, and I'm just going to stay in PowerPoint just for this part. But in PowerPoint, in your review tab, you have a button here that says check accessibility. If you are like me and have been using Microsoft products for quite a long time, there are always multiple ways to do things in Microsoft products. And so you can find the accessibility checker in the review tab here. But at the very bottom of my presentation, you can also find accessibility or the accessibility checker. But I'm going to click check accessibility. And you'll notice that a dialog box will appear on the right-hand side with inspection results, and they're categorized into 4 sections. So I have errors, warnings, tips, and then I have a section that says intelligent services. So under my errors, I can see that I have 3 major types of errors here. I have missing alternative text in 68 places. Oh my goodness. I have a table that has no header row, and then I have a missing slide title on 37 slides. And then I have some warnings here. I'm just going to walk you through really quickly how to correct some of these errors. So when I click missing alternative text, it's going to drop down and show me all of the places in my PowerPoint where I'm missing alternative text. Now, this is a PowerPoint that I actually did this on purpose. I didn't change the accessibility or the alternative text because I love to demo this. But if I click on picture number 9, slide 2, it will take me to this picture. And then if I click the drop down arrow here, it's going to give me some recommended actions. So either I can add a description or I can mark it as decorative. Optionally, I can have Microsoft's AI or artificial intelligence suggest a description for me. If I click add a description, then I can type the 2 sentences, 1 to 2 sentences that describe this particular picture or image. I can also click generate a description, and you'll see that there was nothing that came up. So I'm going to try to use my best description possible so that if a student who's using a screen reader, and maybe I should have said that from the beginning, missing alternative text lets me know that if I have a student who is using a screen reader, screen readers cannot read pictures. They have to have the alternative text to read the words that describe that picture. So a lot of times we have things on our PowerPoints like flowers or little circles that don't have anything to do with the content of the PowerPoint or the slide, or don't necessarily attend to the comprehension of that particular content or that slide's content. So I could mark it as decorative. If I feel like this is something that would really boost the comprehension or that is needed for the presentation, then I would need to incorporate alternative text so that the screen reader could read this. So I would say grouped image of 6 Microsoft Office specialist certification icons. And I might add Microsoft Office specialist badges for Outlook, Excel, Word, OneNote, PowerPoint. You'll notice, if you didn't notice, as soon as I start typing, that slide actually disappeared as an error because I've corrected it or I've started to correct it. I could also, you also get like a little notice here that says, do you want to donate your picture for science? Basically to help the AI built into Office 365 do a better job of using the intelligent services to generate a description for me. So now that I'm done with that one, I could move on to the next one. And then I could click the arrow, mark it as decorative, or add a description. So I'm going to click mark it as decorative. And now you'll notice that it will not have any alternative text. When the screen reader reads it, it will let the student know that it is a decorative image. Now, if I go to my intelligent services down here, I can actually click suggested alternative text. And you'll notice that many of my slides already have suggestions, or the AI has picked up suggestions for me. So if I go to slide 19, it shows me a person wearing glasses and smiling at the camera. I think that's pretty accurate. So I can actually, to make sure that this is recognized, I can either just type in here a period and then it'll change it, or I can delete the description automatically generated, which is what I normally do, so that it disappears. And then I can do the same for all of them. Now this one says a picture containing an axe. That is not an axe, that is a bird. And so I'll change that, delete that out. And I can just keep going through this to clean some of this up so that my student will be able to use this PowerPoint without any difficulty. You'll find that accessibility checker, as I said, in many different locations throughout the Office 365 suite. And before the end of our session, I'm going to share an image that shows exactly where all of the tools are found, and you can download that PDF or document to have at your fingertips. So now let's take a look at the immersive reader. So I'm going to go to my OneNote notebook here, and I have a ton of pages in this notebook. Yeah, so someone said, can we get that now? Absolutely. So if you can type it in yourself. Let me find my slide here. There we go. So you can type in HTTP, and also I can put it in the chat, but you can type that in, or I can, you can click the link that I'm posting now in the chat, and you can download a link to this flyer that will show all of the learning tools and where they're located. All right, so let's take a look at the immersive reader. So in my class notebook, I am going to go to this page that talks about geography. And as you can see here, it's just a few paragraphs that talk about what is geography. I've also embedded a OneNote notebook, but if I have a student who struggles with reading, they could use the immersive reader to help them with this piece of text. So in my View tab in OneNote, I'm going to click Immersive Reader, and the Immersive Reader will appear on the student's screen. So in Immersive Reader, I have four sets of tools, major tools. So the first is at the bottom of my page, I have a play button that I can use to have OneNote read this piece of text to me. So I'm going to click play.
The study of Earth's landforms is called physical geography. Landforms can be mountains and valleys. They can also be glaciers, lakes, or rivers. Landforms are sometimes called physical features. It is important for students to know about the physical geography of Earth. The seasons.
All right, so that will actually read the article or the document to me. I can click the voice settings and change the speed. So right now mine is set to slow, but I could speed it up. I could also change the voice selection. In the top right-hand corner, I have 3 sets of tools or preferences. So the first is text preferences. Under text preferences, you'll see that I can increase the size or decrease the size. So if I'm a student who has visual impairments, then I can increase the text size so that it's easier for me to read. I can also increase or decrease the text spacing. This is really good for students who have visual impairments and who struggle with sometimes reading the words in a paragraph because they're too close together, or deciphering between the beginning of one word and the ending of another. If I have a visual impairment, or if I'm using a screen reader, I could change the theme. I like to use, personally, I like to use the dark theme because I wear glasses and I do have a visual impairment. So it's easier for me to read text, white text on a black background when I am using a computer. Under the grammar options, I have syllabication. You'll see that syllabication is automatically turned on for me. I normally leave it on. And I will say that syllabication is an amazing tool. I have a son who also has a disability, and in the first maybe 3 or 4 months of using learning tools when it first came out years ago, we were using syllabication, and he jumped literally 20 to 25 words in his fluency. It is an amazing, amazing tool. Basically, it teaches students to use syllables as they are normally taught with phonics and phonemic awareness. It teaches them to break the words into syllables to make it easier for them to read. So if I turn on syllabication, it will break the words into syllables. So seasons, so 2 syllables, atmosphere, 3. I also have the ability to turn on parts of speech. So I have all of them turned on, but let's say I only struggle with understanding adverbs. I can turn on adverbs and actually change the color to highlight them green to make it easier for me. Right now, labels are turned on. So anywhere where there's an adverb, it will label it and also turn it green. But I could turn on all of the parts of speech if I wanted to. Right now, we only have nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. I'm not sure when prepositions or conjunctions, interjections, things like that will be made available. There has not been a timeline set or rolled out on the Office 365 roadmap. Under my reading preferences, I also have what we call line focus. As a mom to a student with ADHD, I have found that line focus actually is really beneficial for those students who struggle with comprehension because they cannot focus on more than one line of text at a time. And so I can actually turn on line focus, and you'll notice it will focus on that one line of text. And when I minimize the grammar options, I can click the arrows to scroll up and down so that I'm only focused on one line of text at a time. This is an amazing feature that many teachers have found lots of success with, or students have found lots of success with. I also have a picture dictionary, which if I click on a picture, it will show me an image that describes it, and it'll also let me listen to that particular word in English and my designated language. So under those reading preferences, you'll notice that I have my translation set to Spanish. I can choose up to 120 languages that are available No, I think there's 60 in the Immersive Reader. And in Microsoft Translator, there are 120. But I can choose any language that I want this to translate to. So if I have a student, or if a student is a native speaker of Hebrew, they can click on the word geography, and now there's Hebrew. I can listen to it in English
Geography.
and Hebrew.
Geografia.
Now, right now it's set to translate by word, but I could also translate the entire document by selecting or toggling the switch to change it to the entire document. I think that this is amazing for those students who are not native English speakers. And when I do this, you'll notice that I have Hebrew is the default language, but at any time I can click original and it will switch back to the original language that the text was in my OneNote notebook. This is a really nice feature, and the students can toggle between their languages at any time. So if the student is Finnish or speaks Finnish, oh, I chose Filipino, oops. But if they are Filipino, they can do that. I can choose Dutch, translate the entire document. And then if I wanted it to read it to me in Dutch, I could do that by simply starting my cursor at the beginning of the text and clicking play.
De studie van de landvormen van de aarde wordt fysieke geografie genoemd. Landvormen kunnen bergen en valleien zijn. Het kunnen...
All right, so I'm going to stop there to see if there are any burning questions. I think a few came through the chat, so I'll check those first. And then if there are any other burning questions, please feel free to ask. So let's see. Yes, I'm recording this session. Do these features work for other languages? So I think I just addressed that. So in your reading preferences here, you can change the language and all of the tools. So the syllabication, the line focus, all of those will still be there. And there are no silly questions, but each student would need to use the tools individually. So on the student's device or whatever application that they're in on their device, they would just click Immersive Reader and it would work for them. So there's no imaging. I know many teachers have asked, well, if I'm at a school, does my school need to image the computer so that the students can use it? No. So the students would just open up Word or open up OneNote. They would click Immersive Reader in the View tab and it's there. If we have it on our device, will the students be able to see it if we are in presentation mode? Yes. So if you are presenting your screen just as I am, then yes, the students will be able to see it. Let's see. Yes, we will provide a link to the recording. All right. Are there any other burning questions about Immersive Reader? No? Okay. So to exit Immersive Reader, you simply click the back arrow here to exit, and you'll notice it takes you back to that original OneNote page. That page looks exactly the same as it did before, and there's nothing new that my students need to do, or there's nothing that has been changed. So this is a nice way that your students can do that. Another thing that has come up, or that many teachers have asked, which I'm surprised you guys didn't ask, is, how can they keep the translation? Well, when you're in Immersive Reader, it's real time and there's no way for the students to actually print or keep the translation. However, in the View tab, you do have an option here that says Translate. So if a student wanted to, or if you wanted to provide multiple options or multiple languages of the same text, you can simply select the text. And then after selecting the text, click Translate. And I can translate the selection or the page, but I'm just going to translate the selection that I highlighted. It will ask me to choose the language that I want to, the default language. And then at the bottom, what am I translating it to? Right now, it's translating it to Chinese Simplified. And if I wanted that, I could. but I could also choose any other language, and you'll see it translated it now to Arabic. And then what I normally do is I unselect or deselect the text because I want to keep it in English as well. And then I click insert, and now that text is in English and Arabic for me or for the student, and I can have both copies there. So you can either do that automatically, I mean, not automatically, but you can do that whenever you insert text into your Word document or OneNote notebook, or you can teach students to do the translation on their own. I know that sometimes when I've worked with language teachers, ELL teachers, they get really sad, or I don't know, when they think about students using a translation tool, but I'm always about making sure that the students succeed. And so having those tools available will ensure that they are successful. You'll notice that in this OneNote notebook, I showed you in PowerPoint, but in OneNote, there is check accessibility. So I could check the accessibility here in OneNote as well. So now I'm going to show you some features in Word that will help with inclusive writing as well as inclusive reading. So here is a document on Mahatma Gandhi, and you'll notice if I go to my review tab, I have my check accessibility here. I also have my translate option here, and then I also have read aloud. So in Word, you'll notice that your read aloud is really your
Mahatma Gandhi.
So I can use that here. If I click my settings, I can change the reading speed just like I can in OneNote. And then I can change the voice. There are only 3 options, so David, Zira, or Mark. But if the student needed to use it, they could. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about inclusive writing. So as I said before, I have a student who has a disability, and he often struggles with getting his thoughts down on paper. He's a very bright and smart young man, but sometimes when it comes to typing or writing his essays or his papers, he cannot get them down as easily as if he would be able to speak them or verbalize them. And so using a tool such as Dictate in the Word application, and also in OneNote as well, but you can have your student verbalize what they want to type, and then Word will actually type it for them. So I'm going to go here. And then when I click Dictate, watch what happens. I'm going to tell you about Mahatma Gandhi, period. He was an Indian lawyer, anti-colonial nationalist, and political ethicist who employed nonviolent resistance to lead the successful campaign for India's independence from British rule, comma, and in turn inspire movements for civil rights, period. So as I'm talking, it's just typing for me, and now I'm not typing my essay. I'm just talking regularly, and it's going to continue to type as long as I have the dictate button turned on. If I wanted to insert punctuation, then I need to tell it the punctuation that I want to insert, comma, for example, comma. So if I wanted to insert a period, then I would need to say period. If I wanted to insert a question mark, then I would need to pause and say question mark. And at any time, I can click the button, dictate again, to turn it off. And now it's off, and the student is done, and they can actually begin to use the review tab or use what I'm going to show you next, Microsoft Editor, to edit their presentation. So it's because, so when you are using the dictate button or using dictate, you have to actually pause and tell it what you want to say. I was talking very, very quickly just now. It did insert some of the commas. So after I said insert comma, it did that. For example, comma, it did that. But you'll notice that it does it. And then once it recognizes that you want to insert it, it will go back and change it. Now, there were a couple cases where it did not. But that's because I was talking really quickly and I didn't pause to let it know that I was actually wanting it to insert a period for it to be the end of that particular statement. So I'm going to show you Microsoft Editor. So in Editor, or when I click Editor, it will show me how to, or different things that I need to correct or refine in my document. So it'll check regular things such as spelling and grammar. So I can see that I have 10 spelling errors and 3 grammar errors, but it also will check for refinements. This is particularly useful for those upper level or secondary level students who are writing papers and they really need to ensure that their paper is written in a formal tone, that they're using proper punctuation conventions, that they are clear and concise. I know many doctoral students who have used this to help with writing their dissertation. So when I click spelling, it'll go through all of the spelling just like it normally would if I did spell check. And I can either ignore once, ignore all, or I can add to dictionary. I can also check my grammar errors, and then I can ignore as well. Now, when I go to formality, it's going to give me some tips on how to ensure that I am using formal writing techniques. So this is telling me that in formal writing, try to spell out the words, don't use contractions. So it's saying that I should use I am instead of I'm. And if I click it, and it'll update it and correct it for me. When I click spelling conventions, punctuation conventions, it'll do the same thing. So it's telling me that I need to have a comma after practices, a comma after contradictory, and then it'll give me a check mark to let me know that now my refinements are done or complete. At any time, I can go to my settings here, and I can change the settings that I want to use for this particular editor. So you'll see it says, right now it's set for grammar and refinements, but I can just change it to grammar if I wanted it to. And then when I'm done, I can just click out of this to exit out of it. I can also click sensitivity. No, sorry. Oops, wrong one. We're going to look at that later. But I can also use this editor in Word Online. So if you're not using Word Online, please feel comfortable or try it out. Many people think that, oh, I don't like to use the online versions of Office 365 because they are, not the same and it doesn't have all of the tools or all of the features. But you'll find that these features, most of the immersive reader features and learning tools are in the online versions because it is meant to be device agnostic and for students who have varying devices from iPads to Chromebooks to Windows devices to be able to use. All right, so I'm going to stop there and see if there are any questions about dictation or editor. All right. Looks like there are none. I didn't see any pop in the chat, and I didn't see any. I see one hand raised. I think that's Rainey. I don't want to pronounce your name wrong. Do you have a question?
Sorry. You answered my question. I forgot to unraise my hand.
Oh, okay. Well, great. All right, so I'm going to minimize Word and I'm going to go back to PowerPoint just so that you can see where to find those tools in PowerPoint. Back to OneNote. So the editor is not in OneNote, but Dictate is. So at any time you can click Dictate, or the students can click Dictate and use the tool here. I forgot to show you that you can also set your dictate language. So right now mine is set to English, but if I wanted it to dictate in French or Japanese or any of the languages that are here, I could do that as well. So for example, I'm going to go here and let's do Portuguese and click Dictate. So now I can actually just start speaking and it will type for me in Portuguese. Now I don't speak Portuguese, I actually should have chose Japanese or Russian, so I could have checked it. But if I wanted to write or have OneNote type my welcome message in another language, I could do that, whether it's in OneNote or in Word, and I might be sending this Word document in an email. I could do that. And the dictate option is available in Outlook as well. So if you're sending an email to your parents and you wanted to have the language set to, a language that your students mainly speak, you could do that. And at any time, as I said before, you just simply click dictate again, and it will stop typing. All right, now let's take a look at inclusive math. So I am not a math person at all, and I totally wish that the math tools or the math learning tools were available when I was a student, because I probably would have been a lot more successful. I'm very strong in social studies, history, language arts. And so coming up in college, not college, but in high school and middle school, I struggled a lot with math. And one of the reasons was because throughout my middle school career, we had the same math teacher. And I think that she just did not really understand how to teach to all of the different learning styles. But with OneNote, there is a math learning tool built right in. So if I go to my Draw tab here, I can actually use my pencil or my ink pens to draw an equation or to write an equation. So I'm just going to do, let's do 2/4 plus 5/8. Now, let's say this was a problem that I'm doing for homework as a student or as a teacher. I have put in my students' OneNote notebook for them to solve as homework, and the student is struggling. They could actually use the lasso tool to select this problem, and then when they click the math button here, the math editor will come up and it will ask me first, do I need to fix this problem? But no, it actually typed it or recognized it correctly. So it's adding 2/4 plus 5/8. If I wanted to change it to ink, so like type text, I can do ink to math, but then I can also select an action to help me solve this particular math problem. So I'm going to click evaluate, and then it shows me the answer is 9/8, or simplified as 1.125. And as a student, I might still say, well, I don't even understand how I got that answer. I still don't understand how to add fractions. Well, I can click show steps and click solution steps, and it will walk me through how to solve this problem. In addition, which is awesome, I can click this immersive reader, and I can open up the immersive reader and have the immersive reader read the solution steps to me. So if I click play.
Solution steps. Reduce the fraction 2/4 to lowest terms by extracting and canceling out 2.
All right, so I'm just going to go back. So I can walk through those steps. So it tells me I need to find the least common multiple of 2 and 8, which is 8, and then convert 1/2 and 5/8 to fractions with the same denominator of 8. So 4/8 plus 5/8. And then now that they have the same denominator, I can add the numerators together, and then I would have 9/8. The one step that I realized it did not show me was how to simplify it. But in this case, maybe that wasn't something that my student taught me. That my teacher taught me. At any time, I can go here to my settings, and I can change it to solve for real numbers or complex numbers. I can change the angle measurement. So right now it's set to radians, but I could change it to degrees. And that would be if I'm using the ruler here to find angles. So I'm going to choose ink to shape, and then I'm going to draw a triangle. Oops, that was not a triangle. Try that again, Tiffany. There we go. And now I can use my ruler. I can bring my ruler over here. and use that to help me measure my angles if I needed to use the ruler. At any time, I can just click that ruler again and turn it off, or I can click ink to shape and turn that off. If I wanted to do ink to text or ink to math, as you saw earlier, I can just select this particular problem, choose ink to math, and then click it, and now it changed that problem to typed text for me. All right, so I'm going to stop there to see if there are any burning questions. All right, so let's see. This is frightening to me as a math teacher. It's like providing photo math to students so they can cheat. I understand that it's great for tutoring of special needs, but for the majority of students, they will now have access to something that actually does the work for them instead of requiring them that they can learn on their own. How do we control access to this? So that's interesting. So as a teacher and an educator, and I've taught elementary math, not middle school math, but I've taught elementary math because, as I said, I've taught many grade levels. And I don't know if I would necessarily consider it cheating. I think that as students who struggle with a particular concept, they could use it to assist them with solving a problem. And then you could always, provide more resources or help them, walk through it. And then you can always ask them during a live session or small groups, hey, how did you solve this problem? Or how did you get the answer to this problem? But with Class Notebook, so the first answer to your question is, how do we control this or control access to it? So for your entire district, you can actually have it turned off. I'm not sure if that's a good idea. But students who have their own devices, if they have like their own parent bought or parent devices, then they would still have access to that math tool. If it's a school issued device, then it's something that could possibly be turned off at the admin level by your Office 365 administrator. You can also, let me go back for a second to the math tab. There was a feature, and I think it was actually taken away, but let me confirm before I say that it was. Yeah, so there was a feature where you could turn it off, but that's per student or per individual student. So I'm not sure if that would be something that would work for you anyway. A lot of students don't even know that it exists. I mean, it would be a matter of you telling them that it exists or them finding it on their own. But I think that it is really good for students who struggle with understanding a particular concept or skill. I know that as a teacher, I know that there have been many students who've been in my class who did not understand the way that I taught, or just never clicked for them. And then maybe had a substitute teacher, or I had a student teacher who was under me who came in and helped them figure it out, and vice versa. As a teacher who's gotten, multiple degrees, I've had grad level teachers who I could not get what they were trying to say. And then a student may have explained it to me in another way. And I'm like, I get it now. That aha moment went off in my head. So I think that having multiple options for them to get the help that they need when you're not available is always a good thing. All right. So are there any burning questions? Oh, Archie says, I think it is perfect for filling in missing gaps in learning. Thank you. I agree too. All right. So we've talked about inclusive reading, inclusive writing, inclusive math. Now let's take a look at inclusive communication. So you probably saw when I first started my PowerPoint presentation that I had closed captionings or subtitles at the top of my PowerPoint. And ironically, I forgot to change it back to English. So I noticed as I was talking that it was being subtitled in Spanish. And so with PowerPoint, you can actually turn on subtitles so that whenever you're presenting a PowerPoint, you have the option for those subtitles to show. This is perfect for students who are hard of hearing, or who just need that extra bit of help when they are in a class and they need to see the words to understand them. Myself, I am a visual, well, I'm multi, but I am bodily kinesthetic learner, so I have to touch it. I'm also a visual learner, so I have to see it. And then I'm a verbal linguistic learner, meaning I have to hear it or have someone explain it to me. So all three of those things really help me to really dive into a skill or concept or learn it and master it. And so using subtitles is a really good way for you to capture those verbal linguistic learners, or even your ELL learners, or if you want to take it a step further, your parents that you may be working with or presenting to. So you'll notice my default setting is for subtitles to always be turned on. I can actually change my subtitle settings. So my spoken language is English, but I can change my subtitle language to any of these languages. So if I wanted to change or subtitle in Korean, I could do that. And then I need to choose where I want my subtitles to lay. So normally when I'm using Microsoft Teams, I like my subtitles to lay above the slide or at the top of the slide so that it doesn't interfere with that toolbar that we were talking about earlier in Teams, that Teams toolbar. But you can choose and play around with which options work for you. So I'm actually going to go ahead and present this slideshow again so that you can see those new subtitles in Korean. So now I am starting to talk and you can see the subtitles above my slide in Korean. So hopefully you guys were able to access the Learning Tools flyer for PD. I think I may have typed it wrong initially, meaning that there was a space or something like that. But as I said, I'm going to provide you with a link and a screenshot of this so that you can actually have it if you did not get a chance to download it. You can also always go back to watch this recording and review the link and see the link there. So we've talked about where we've seen where we can use the immersive reader, but where else can we find the immersive reader? So we can find it in Minecraft Education. So if you and your students are using Minecraft Education, which I love for gaming or gaming and education, you can find it there and it will actually load the screen. You can find the immersive reader in Microsoft Forms. So if you're using Forms for quizzes or even surveys or polls or exit tickets, you can find the immersive reader there where it can read the questions for your students. And then you can also find it in third-party apps. So built right into Teams, we have tools such as Buncee and Nearpod and ThingLink. I know Buncee for sure, Nearpod, and I'm not sure about ThingLink yet, but they already have the immersive reader built into those presentations. So if you're using Buncee in Microsoft Teams, then you'll see the immersive reader built in there. So I see that someone has a question about how accurate are the captions and translation. Nothing's perfect, of course, but what has been your experience with the product? So I will say that I've been using the product or the translation feature a lot, and I've used it actually at the United Nations. So I did a presentation for Microsoft at the United Nations, and I had people who were speaking Malay and Korean and Tagalog, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, that it was about 98%, 99% accurate. And so I have not incurred any other, negative or responses where that was negated. So I'm going to say that, from my experience and working with educators from all over the world, that it is pretty accurate, particularly with some of those tougher languages. And I studied Japanese and Russian in high school. And when I went to Japan, I learned Japanese. And so for me, it has been pretty accurate as well with the Japanese. So, let's see what else. Yeah, so I would probably say that, yeah, it's pretty good. So let me change it to a different language. And I think I saw another question pop up. Since you're fluent in other language, would you demonstrate speaking in that language and having it translate to English for us? Sure. So let me go to slideshow. Let me change it to, so darn. So you'll see that my spoken language is selected to English, but I don't have the language pack installed for Japanese or Russian, which are the other languages that I speak. So you would have to install the language pack in order for it to appear as your spoken language, and then you can choose your subtitle language. So I'm not sure if it would work. Well, not sure. It's not going to work if English is the language and I'm speaking Japanese. So it doesn't work like that. However, there is another translator. So this is the one that's built into PowerPoint. I'm going to show you the other Microsoft Translator option that you can try out for yourself. It's called Microsoft Translator. You can download it for free. And with it, this works really well for large classes, for parent communication. I have used it many times, not just in education, but even when I'm traveling. I have the app on my phone. And when I went to Cuba, like I'm not a Spanish speaker. So when I went to Cuba, I used it to help me have conversations with the natives there. And I've used it at airports or wherever I've gone and I needed to use it for another language. But you can use it for parents, which I've done as well too. So I can actually start a conversation. And when I start a conversation, my language is English. And I can have others join my conversation and we can talk back and forth in my native language of English and your native language of whatever it is. So if it's Spanish or French or Dutch. And so to do that, you would just have them scan the QR code or go to translator.microsoft.com and then they can input this code. Or if you have the app, you can download it and input the code, and then we could have a conversation. So I would just hold my space bar and speak, and then you would hold your space bar and speak, and we could have a conversation regardless of the language that we have. So it takes away that language barrier. So Cheryl asked the question, is there a list of places where Immersive Reader is available? If so, where can the list be found? So actually, if you scroll up, I posted the link to the flyer that shows where the Immersive Reader is located. And let's see. And then there was a comment by Crystal. Okay. All right. So you guys can test that out and play around with it. This translator tool. I'll also put the link in our chat so that you can have time to explore that option as well. Also, before I go, in the translator, you have a phrase book. So, well, it looks like no one joined, so it's okay to leave. Yeah. So you have a phrase book. So if you wanted to save like phrases that you would use often, then you can save those. So right now I have hello, goodbye. So this is for Spanish. I have hello, goodbye. I have language. Oh, I didn't save any. Oh yeah, yes I did. Money and currents and purchases. That's expensive. So I love that I can save these in my phrase book so that I can have them to use. This came in handy so much when I was in Cuba. But you can choose the language that you want to find quick phrases so that you don't have to try to figure out what you want to say. And then at any time you can go to your history and see any recent translations or any pen translations. So this is the one on my Surface Pro on my actual laptop. So I don't really use this when I'm traveling. I use the one on my phone. So that's why there's no history here. And then if you wanted to actually translate a piece of text, so if a parent sent you an email in Spanish and you could not read it, you could copy and paste it and it would actually translate it for you. So let's see, does that link include the educational apps where it is available to? Cheryl, if I think I'm understanding you correctly, do you mean the link that I posted above, the aka.ms learning tools flyer? Is that what you're asking? I'm thinking. So that link only gives you the learning tools flyer for where they are in the Office apps. But on that one, there's another one that's just the aka.ms/learning tools. That link will show you all of the apps where it is located outside of Office. I think that's what you're saying. And then another question, do we need to go into Microsoft to find these apps? Do you mean like the translator app?
All the ones that you were showing, I'm just looking how to get into it. We got to go in through 365 or what?
Ah, thank you. Okay, great question. So the apps that I was just using, they're all built into Office Desktop. But if you go to if you go to Office 365, they're all there in those same apps too. So if I showed you Word in the desktop version, but if you go to Word Online, you'll find Dictate and Editor. If you go to OneNote Online, let me find a random Word document. If you go to OneNote Online, you'll see the Dictate tool. So this is Word Online. I'm in the browser. There's Dictate, there's Editor. If I go to OneNote Online, you'll see the Dictate and the Immersive Reader there as well. So there's Dictate here, same place that it was in the desktop version. And then when I go to View, there's the Immersive Reader. So I can find the Immersive Reader there and check accessibility. And then in PowerPoint, which I have here, here's subtitles. So you can choose your subtitle language and your spoken language just like you can in the desktop version. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. All right, so now that I'm actually in PowerPoint online, I'm going to show you a feature that is only available in the online version of PowerPoint. So everything else that I just showed you was basically available in both the desktop version and Office 365 or the online version. But I'm going to show you two features here for inclusive communication that are, or the learning tools for communication that are only available in the online version. So the first is called Present Live and the second is called Rehearse with Coach. I love both of these for interaction for students and for educators. So I'll show you Rehearse with Coach first. So when I click Rehearse with Coach, this brings up an AI tool that will let you practice presenting your PowerPoint so that you are a professional or you sound professional when you're delivering your presentations. This is great for teachers. This is great for students. It will let you know if your tone is monotone, if you're speaking too quickly, if you're using inclusive speech, like if you say you guys, it'll tell you if that's not sensitive. If that's insensitive, it'll tell you if you use too many fillers like So I'm going to click Start Rehearsing. So now I can start my presentation on writing friendly letters. So today, class, we will learn about writing friendly letters, a write-on activity. Friendly letters have 5 parts: the heading, the salutation or greeting, the body, the closing, and then the signature. The heading can include your address and the date. In casual friendly letters, your address is not necessary. You'll see here, so I'm doing this on purpose so that you can see that as I'm talking, it's giving me live feedback about how I'm presenting. When I'm done, I can simply exit out of my presentation and it will bring up this nice report that tells me how well or how poorly I did. So I can see that I rehearsed 4 slides. It took me a total of 47 seconds. It showed me that I actually read slide 3 and that I might want to work on memorizing or paraphrasing. I didn't have any insensitive phrases, so that's great. My pace was pretty good. So I was speaking about 127 words a minute. And then it's showing me my pitch, think my pitch was pretty okay. It went down a little bit. And then I used a filler. So I said a couple of times. So this is really nice for students too. So even if you have students who are in elementary school, middle school, high school, whatever the level, they can use this to practice and enhance their communication skills, particularly as they prepare for 21st century work or career. And at any time I can click rehearse again. So I'm going to exit out of that. Now I'm going to show you present live. But before I do that, I think I saw a question that popped up. So it says, where did you click for rehearse with coach? So I'm in PowerPoint Online. And when I open my PowerPoint in the slideshow tab, there's a button to the right that says rehearse with coach. And it says, if you have your script written in the bottom, does it count that as reading the slide? Yes. So anytime you are reading exactly, I take that back. So if your script is word for word, what you have on your slide, then yes, it will count that as reading the slide. If it's just like your notes, and as long as it's not word for word what's on your slide, then it won't count that. Do the changes stay or do they go away after save or posted? Do you mean when you're rehearsing? Ranveer, I think I pronounced it right. So when you are done rehearsing, you will get an email with your report. So, I mean, I guess they go away in a sense, because really it's just telling you how you did as far as your presentation. It doesn't correct it for you. So if it's not going to correct like misspellings or things like that. This is just telling you how well you presented the content. Now there's another feature called Present Live. And so when I click Present Live, this allows me to have an interactive PowerPoint presentation. So I know many of you are familiar with probably Nearpod. Nearpod is one of my favorite engaging tools to use with my learners. But PowerPoint Live is a new feature that was rolled out recently that allows students to join your presentation in real time as you navigate through your slides on their device. So if you guys want to try it, please feel free. You can either use your mobile device, so you can use your cell phone if you have it, to scan this particular QR code and it will take you to my presentation and you can join my presentation live. Alternatively, you can type ppt.ms/JCXWEVUN. Sorry, that is so many characters, but the link is here. You can actually join from the web if you want to. So I see 5 people have joined, and as students join or participants join, the number increases here. So right now we have 7, so I'll give it about maybe 10 more seconds to see if others join. If you are on an iPhone, I know that you do not need to have a QR code scanner, which is amazing. You simply open up the camera app like you're going to take a picture, and it will automatically scan the QR code for you. All right. Oh gosh, David said the toolbar is in the way. Yeah, this is something that that has been a pain point for, I think, Microsoft Teams, for the Microsoft Teams team for some time now, particularly with the increase in digital remote learning. And I know that this is something that they said they were going to be working on. Oh, that's great to know, Jennifer. Yeah, that your Android did it as well. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So as I start my presentation, the first thing you'll notice is that when I click my arrow to move the slides, it moves on your screen. And when I'm talking, it's showing my subtitles or captions automatically. And as a participant, at the bottom of your screen, I believe it's on the left side, you have the option to change your language. So if you want to change your language to Spanish or to Tagalog or to Chinese or Korean or Hebrew, you can do that. You can also react to my presentation. So you can give it a thumbs up. You can clap. I think there is a confused look. Oh, I see a smiley face. So this is really nice to keep your students engaged as well. So as we're going through the lesson, if I ask my students a question, okay, does everyone understand what the salutation is? It's the greeting in our friendly letter. It goes under your address on the left side of your paper. And at any time, I can just keep going through my presentation or through my lesson, and the students can see it moving along on their screen. So it's not as interactive as Nearpod, and I'm saying that because I know with Nearpod, you can insert like polls, and there's matching activities and true or false, and you can have students write their answer in a short response or brief constructed response. So it's not quite the same, but I'm sure it'll get better and better the more feedback we get from this new feature. Okay, so are there any burning questions for me regarding the last few features or tools that I showed you? So first, I think there was a question about the code. So at any time, students can join by clicking, it leaves the code at the top. So the link ppt.ms/jcxwevun. So there it is at the top of this presentation. So anyone can join who's following on my shared screen. And then, yes, if you, I thank you for whoever posted that. I saw it pop up, but then it disappeared, about updating Teams. Yes, if you have the newest version of Teams, you can, that toolbar will go away. Well, move, I should say. All right, so I see there is a few general questions. Are there any limitations as to devices to gain full access? Example, can a parent pick up a low-cost Chromebook off the shelf and have full access to online Office 365? Yes, amazingly, yes, they can. They won't be able to, of course, download anything, but absolutely, they can use a Chromebook, buy a Chromebook, open up Chrome, I'm guessing will be the default browser, log into their Office 365 account, and open Word, PowerPoint, Excel, OneNote, and have access to the Immersive Reader, Dictate, all of the tools that I just showed you. All right. Are there any other burning questions? Okay, so now I'm going to get out of this. All right, so when I'm done and I escape or exit out of my PowerPoint presentation, I can see here that I have a bar that appears across the top. So I can either resume my session. So let's say that I was using the PowerPoint or the Present Live to engage my student in the main lesson, but now we're going to use a tool such as Microsoft Whiteboard to have them whiteboard, or maybe I'll whiteboard a sample friendly letter, right? So I might go to Whiteboard. Now we're going to write a friendly letter here, and then my greeting, right? So I'm just pretending that I'm writing a letter. And so I might use the whiteboard. And then if I'm done with that portion of it, I can go back to the friendly letter presentation and resume the session. You'll notice that it expires in 30 minutes. So, well, it auto expires in 30 minutes. So you'll want to keep note of that. And then when you're done, you can simply end the session. And when you end it, that means no longer, the students will no longer be able to access the presentation. You'll actually get a pop-up on your screen that said, it'll say like, you know, how was the presentation? How was the sound or the quality? I think there are 4 or 5 questions there, and you can provide that feedback to Microsoft. That feedback does not really come to me. Well, the feedback about the sound and things like that won't come to me, but I will get an email where it shows the summary of how you felt about the presentation. So I believe I have that. Let's see if I have it default in my email. So here it is. Oops, wrong one. So this is one that I did the other day, and it shows my presentation score, 5.0 based on 2 responses. It shows my slide design, how people felt about the speaker skills, the content, the audience. I'm not sure why my icons aren't showing. Yeah, I'm not sure why my icons aren't showing in Outlook, but it will give you this basic presentation, a summary about how you performed doing Present Live. So that's nice to have. Okay, so I see that there were 2 questions that popped up. I noticed an echo at times during your presentation. What steps did you take to eliminate that? So the echo actually was my fault. It was nothing that would normally happen. So in order for me to, what I like to do as a presenter, and this is just me, when I'm sharing my screen and I don't want to distract from that, I normally have Teams pulled up on both of my devices, whether it's my mobile phone or my iPad or something like that. And so I had Teams pulled up on my iPad, and when I accidentally clicked the button that enabled audio on my phone, which meant that it caused an echo. And so I just turned it off. So maybe that's what you heard. And then the second question says, are there any other benefits to using the live presentation besides the translate and emojis? No, honestly. It's just another tool that I tell teachers that it would be good to have in your repertoire or your toolbox, because I know that you probably use Nearpod or Flipgrid or Pear Deck and some other tools. But if you're looking to keep everything in one place, particularly in Teams. So what I found is when I'm using other tools during a live presentation, if I have too many apps open, depending on the device I'm using, I have an updated device now, but depending on the device I'm using and the connection, it may slow down the interaction that I have in Teams. And so what I found as a workaround is making sure that I'm doing everything in Office 365. So I'm using PowerPoint, Sway, Forms, Whiteboard, all of that is open. So I only have one browser open with all of the apps that I'm going to use, instead of having multiple apps open on the bottom of my toolbar. So that's probably one benefit, if you want to have everything in one space at a time. So my Outlook calendar is not syncing to Teams. I have no calendar here, which means I can't schedule future meetings. Do you know how? So great question, Brittany. So in order for your Teams, and let's see if I can here. So in order for your calendar to show in Teams, you actually have to be on Exchange Online. That's a bit of a technical thing, but you would probably it's probably best if you reach out to your Office 365 administrator to find out more about that. You have to be in Exchange Online, which is like Outlook Online, in order for the calendar feature to show up in Teams for you to schedule meetings. However, you could just go to Outlook Online, which I know could be a hassle, but if you go to your calendar and go to Outlook Online and you create a new event, you can, once you title your event, you can make it a Teams meeting. So you can just toggle here to make it a Teams meeting. All right, let's see. Compared to just sharing your screen for your presentation and letting them use emojis in the chat. I'm not sure. Oh, maybe Jennifer. Did I answer your question? You said what were the benefits besides for the live presentation? Hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, so I understand wanting to keep everything in the least amount of apps as possible.
Okay.
But besides having the translation feature, are there really no other benefits to having the live PowerPoint presentation compared to just sharing your screen with your students?
No. No, I would probably say no. there many teachers, there may be other teachers who find that it's beneficial in some way or another that maybe I haven't found. I've used many Microsoft tools and many other applications. And while I like the Present Live feature and the ability to use those captions during Present Live, I think that there are no other major benefits, I would say, if that answers your question. So you could just share your screen if you are not concerned with students, sharing their reactions, because when you do just a regular presentation like I did earlier, so let me minimize this and go back to PowerPoint, you can still use the subtitles. The only thing that you don't get is that interaction. And I guess an added benefit is that when you're using Present Live and students are using or watching the presentation on their own device, they can choose their own language. Here, when you're using subtitles, you can only choose one language that appears for all students. So if you have a multilingual class, then a student who speaks French is going to be at a disadvantage if you're only showing your subtitles in Spanish. So that's probably the only benefit I can think of. All right. I'm not sure if there were any other questions, but we looked at inclusive writing, inclusive reading, we looked at inclusive math. There's one more thing that I want to show you, and I'm not sure if it'll be beneficial or not, but I would like to share it because I think that it is amazing. So you probably have seen this many times before, but it's the Ease of Access Center. And I use it a lot when I am working with level students. And so the Ease of Access Center, if you didn't know, it's divided into 3 different sections. So you have your vision, your hearing, and your interaction. If you noticed, my cursor is large and it's purple. And I do that a lot because I get many individuals who have visual impairments or who may be just they have difficulty seeing a screen with things on my screen. And so I like to change my cursor or pointer. You can make it as large as you need to, particularly when you're presenting for remote learning. And then you can also change the color, or you can pick a custom color. So mine is not that big. It's like I think it was 3. And then I chose purple. You can also change your cursor thickness so that when you're moving your cursor on, like, let's say a OneNote notebook, and you want your students to be able to see where you are, then you can change the cursor size. So that's a nice thing to do as well. The other thing is for hearing, I will do closed captions. So for hearing, for closed captions, when you're using your subtitles in Teams, you can actually change your closed caption settings in Ease of Access, and it will work for all of your audio devices or all of the apps that use audio. So for example, if I want my caption color to be red instead of white, I could do that. If I want the transparency to be translucent instead of, opaque, I can do that. And this is something that the student will need to set up, or maybe if the devices are imaged, that the IT person could image it for those students. And then also for your keyboard, you can turn on the on-screen keyboard so that at any time, if you needed to use it, if you have students with manual dexterity issues, they can use the on-screen keyboard, making it a little bit easier for them to type. You can turn on sticky keys. I know that many of us do this a lot. Turn on the sticky keys and don't realize that we've turned it on or can't remember how to turn them back off. But sticky keys allow for individuals who have dexterity issues in their hands to be able to do multi-touch or to do shortcuts. So like if they need to do Control-Alt-Delete, they can't click Control-Alt-Delete with one hand. They may need to hold Control and then Control is pressed down for a short period of time, and then they click Alt, and then they touch Delete. So sticky keys allow for that. So these are just some settings just to think about sharing with your students, or or showing them in the beginning, or even having your IT person kind of take a look at. And then last but not least is narrator. So I've accidentally turned this on as well, but you can turn on narrator so that it reads everything on your screen. So if your students don't have a screen reader device yet, they can turn on the narrator, and narrator will help them navigate throughout their device. All right, so it is 12:22, and I know we have more time built in for questions, so I'd like to take questions, but these are all of the amazing tools that Microsoft has at its fingertip, or that you have at your fingertips for free, that you can use starting today. So I'd like to take some questions, and if not, if you don't have any questions, then I definitely want to thank you for joining me today, and I'll share more resources with you as well as with Heather that she can share or send to you. So let's see. So David had a question. Do you know if MS offers the dyslexic font? You know what? I do not know. But I'll write that question down, and if I find an answer, David, do you want to put your email in the chat and I can send you a response? Dyslexic font, MS. I'll find out for you. Got it. All right, thank you. I'll find out and send you an email either way, if they do or if they don't. And then let's see, the recording, where's the link to the recording? Oh, so right now we're still recording, but as soon as we're done, you will be able to access this recording right in the chat. So this chat will stay in your Teams activity feed or in your Teams chat. And when I'm done recording, the recording will pop up for you in the chat. Oh, Ranveer, you want me to send it to you too when I find out? Okay. I will do that. Absolutely. All right, are there any other burning questions? No? All right, well, I thank you for joining me today. Oh, wait, there is a question. How do you add narration to PowerPoint? This may have been asked. Do you mean if you want to just narrate your slide and have it play like in a slideshow without you presenting? Is that what you mean? Okay, so great question. So in slideshow, when you're in the slideshow tab, you have an option here that says record slideshow. You can either record from the current slide or from the beginning. So when I click record slideshow, it'll bring up the narrate page for me where I can record. Now, I don't have notes on this slide, but if you had notes, you can actually expand your notes so that you can present professionally and sort of read those notes or use those notes as a guide. And then you have your annotating tools here at the bottom. So if you need to circle or highlight, and then if you make a mistake, you can click clear and it will clear the recording. So I'll do a test just to show you. So it's going to give me a countdown. So now I'm recording this slide. Microsoft Translator is an amazing tool that you can use with students who speak multiple languages in your classroom. You can have them type their answer. You can have direct conversation. Students can even take a picture and have the picture translated into their native language. All right, and then when I click stop, you'll see my narrations are here. I can click play to listen to how it sounds. And then if I don't like it and want to start over, I can click clear and clear the recording on that slide. And then it'll take the audio as well as the annotations away. All right, so let me get out of that. You're welcome. Which has more tools, the online Office 365 or the downloaded desktop version? Oh, that's a tricky one. If you're just talking about learning tools, they're pretty equal. If you're talking about just in general, than the desktop version. There are many features. While the online version is pretty robust, it has about 96% of the same tools. There's some things that just aren't there because it's an online tool. For example, recording. So like you can't do a recording of slideshow or screen recording inside of the online version. You can do animations, transitions. I don't even think all of the animations are there. So in PowerPoint, I believe they're like 56 or something like that, maybe a little bit more animations. All of them are not available in the online version. I don't know which ones, but all of them aren't there. You do have PowerPoint Designer, so that's there. Format background, slide size, most of those are there. You don't have the developer tab in the online version though. But there, I can share the links to the resources to a page that shows the differences between PowerPoint Online, PowerPoint Desktop, Word Online, Word Desktop. They each have their own page. So if you want me to share those, I could definitely share that. So I'm going to write that down in my notes too. Office Online versus Desktop links. Okay, I'll pop those back. I'll pop those in this chat as well. And so you can always come back to this chat and find them. Let's see. Do you have something that I can print everything you went over? Teresa, can you explain? What do you mean? And then let's see, Archie says, so are you saying we must be in Teams in order to view the recording? Are we able to view the recording outside? Yes, you're able to view the recording outside of Teams. I'll send you the link, but I was saying if you didn't want to wait for me to go into Stream and copy the link and send it to you, that if you're still in Teams in the chat, when I'm done, the recording will automatically appear. But I'm going to send the link as well. All right. All right, so if there are no other questions, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate your time. And at any time, I know that Heather is, I believe, your MLC, but I'm also available. There are about 14 of us who are who love to support educators, especially considering everything that's happening in our world with education. So feel free to reach out. Have a great day, everyone.